As you can tell by the ground, it's pretty frosty because it's obviously winter now. So this is the time when you're going to be doing hopefully a little bit of practice on your game, trying to get it in a better shape, ready for next year. We're at the Golf Academy, so we're going to nip inside. I'm going to give you my kind of top 5 tips or things you should be thinking about to get the most out of your practice sessions. So number 1 is just about how many golf balls that you get. Now it's tempting to think more is better, but theoretically the winter's quite long, and if you start now, you've got quite a few months before the season starts. So quality really is what you should be focusing on over quantity. If you get 100 balls, very often 20, 30 of those, you're not focused, you're fatigued, it's often cold. So I would look to get something like 50 balls and make those 50 of really high quality. Get the most out of your practice. More isn't always better. So think about the number of balls that you're getting. So tip number 2 is to just take your time over the warm-up. Don't rush through it and try and get into your practice session too quick. It's probably going to be cold. Your body isn't ready to hit golf balls. And you're not just warming up, you're preventing injury, which is really important. And also, this is where you're actually setting your tempo for the session. So if you kind of rush through this, your body's cold, you can injure yourself. And then when you actually get into your mid to long irons, you don't have the tempo established that you want. So start with a wedge. This is my 50 degree, and I'm literally just going to start by hitting some really short sort of pitch shots that go no more than 30 to 40 yards. Do a couple of those and then eventually build up. But as I'm doing this, I'm simply focusing on my tempo, keeping it nice and smooth, just feeling the strike. I'm certainly not thinking at this stage anything golf swing, no technical thoughts, no swing thoughts. And then each shot I hit, just trying to increase the speed a little bit. But I say, don't rush the warm-up. Take your time, get yourself warm so that your actual practice balls are of higher quality. Tip number 3, I like to call keep hold of the wheel. And let's use a little analogy. You've seen me set these alignment sticks up here. So why am I doing that? Well, think about driving a car. If you're in the lane that you want to be in and you let go of the wheel, that car doesn't suddenly veer off into another lane and cause you to crash. However, 1 to 2 to 3 miles down the road, that car would have gradually veered probably out of that lane into another one. That's very much like your golf swing. If you take your hands off, if you ignore your golf swing, it's not suddenly going to change. But 2 to 3 months down the line, you will have started to introduce habits that you didn't really even feel creeping into your game, and it's harder to eradicate them. When you're driving, you hold the wheel and you make tiny adjustments to keep you in the lane. The same applies to your golf game. So when I place these alignment sticks down, that's me holding the wheel. It's making sure that my alignment is always good. It's making sure that my ball position is always good. I want you to be checking your grip each time, checking your shoulder alignment, checking where your balance is, keeping hold of the wheel so that you don't, over time, veer offline. I don't want you starting the season in a different place where you finished because you took your eye off the ball and things crept in that you weren't aware of. So when I'm hitting shots, I'm always creating a station, which means that I'm aware of my ball position, I'm aware of my alignment, and it's building good habits. So keep hold of the wheel and create a station that allows you to see what you're doing. Tip number 4 is all about the type of practice you're doing. So when you get to the driving range, you should already have an idea about what you're trying to do that session. Now, there's lots of things that you could be doing. It could be something called block practice. Now, block practice would be when you're maybe trying to make a swing change. So let's say you're working on the takeaway. You'd create your station and you would be doing lots of drills working on that takeaway to make those swing changes that you're trying to work towards. It may well be that you feel like you're playing great in practice, not on the course. So your session might be more around transferring those skills. That might be a case of hitting different clubs each time. So it's a wedge, it's a driver, it's a 7-iron. It might be a case of trying to play some games during practice to build some sort of pressure to replicate what happens on the golf course. It may well be that your practice session is just to establish some distances. So you might want to use some tech, you might want to use a full swing kit or use the tech that's at the range to gauge the distances. It might be that you're trying to observe shot patterns to see what your typical miss is through the bag. The key thing is, whatever your practice session is, you need to be planning that mentally before you arrive at the range. Otherwise, what you end up doing is just hitting balls. And hitting balls isn't practice. So for me, at this stage of the year, this is now November, I will be doing a little bit more block practice because I need to be working a little bit on my first move away, a little bit more on the club face. So my practice would reflect what I'm trying to do with my golf swing. And as I move into the new year, those sessions might change to be a little bit more transference, where I'm trying to transfer those skills to the golf course. For point number 5, I'm going to take these golf balls, I'm going to put them right back here. We'll come to that in a moment. So point number 5 is all about introducing some variety in your practice. And this would be done towards the back end of your session. So very often when you're on the range and you're working on something, it's very easy to kind of scrape and hit. And you can rattle through golf balls in next to no time. But towards the end, I want to introduce some variety, a little bit more like what the golf course does. Now I'm going to pick up these alignment sticks because variety is going to be in different ways. It's going to be changing the club each time. It's going to be changing the target each time. And that's why I've put those golf balls at the back. So I've got myself here a wedge. So I'm going to pick a target, which is the marker over there. And I'm going to try and hit this shot at that target, which is around about 50 yards. Pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a 3-wood and imagine that I'm hitting a tee shot. However, my golf balls are back here. So what this does introduces something else called spacing. So there's a little bit more time between my shots. I had to step off the mat to get my golf ball. I had to choose a different club. It sort of feels like I'm sort of walking into a shot as opposed to that kind of scrape and hit. So because I've now got a different target, I'm going to go a little bit more through my routine. There's a marker right at the end of the range, so I'm going to use that as my target. I'm going to visualize a fairway, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can hit this 3-wood. It's actually 5-wood in my bag, into that fairway. Little left, but not too bad. And then I would put that club back. I would go into a different club, let's say an 8-iron. Obviously, I've got to walk back and get another golf ball. So this is a great way to end your practice session. It's starting to replicate a little bit more the golf course. Spacing between shots, always a different club, always a different target, always going through your routine. That's how you start to transfer the skills that you're developing here onto the golf course. So follow those 5 tips and your practice sessions will be a lot more efficient.